Samuel and his mama and fam went up to do the things again.
Mm-hmm.
And when they went up to do the things again, she kept her word, didn't she?
She did. She took him up.
She took him
Said,
up.
it's time now.
She made sure that she kept her word and that she left the kid there. All right, we're back. I know it's been a while. It was almost exactly a month. So, our bad.
Like 3 weeks.
Life has been super duper busy.
Yeah.
And, well, yeah. So, we made sure to do the thing, but we didn't get the thing on here. So, our apologies. But
We'll get you caught up tonight.
we're back with Chris and his Bible. And, yeah. It's been a minute. Last time we talked about Samson, essentially from life to death or birth to life,
Yeah.
as somebody once said.
That's right.
Yeah. So, whew, and it's a bit toasty in here because man, it's summertime.
It's warm outside.
Anywho, so we finished up Samson last time, and then we moved on to another guy that has an S for a name.
First half, still the same.
Yeah, first half.
First half, still the same. Can you guess it? That's right, kids. Samuel.
Uh-huh.
No, yeah, Samuel.
Yeah, so Samuel. Now, we did take the first couple weeks, so we're going to kind of catch you up on.
Yeah.
We really, I mean, yes, we're saying we're doing like a character study of Samuel, but we spent first, like, what was it, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that, just studying the people around Samuel and around like the beginning of Samuel, just to kind of like find out what kind of time he's coming into, what kind of people were influencing him.
Well, I mean, we
right?
just only started really Samuel at the end this last week because it was
Right. But so let's start at the beginning,
start at the very beginning.
right? And what do we find out about Sam's mama?
She's barren.
She's barren.
Same girl. Same.
Well, it's kind of interesting that God usually, or at least quite a bit of time, is either using barren women or women that have not yet conceived to bring about change within Israel or the world.
Yeah. There's an awful lot of barren women in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. They'd be in the desert.
Maybe it's the desert.
Maybe it's the desert.
It's
Dusty
dry.
wombs.
Yeah.
Anyway, so with that, she had a husband named Elkanah, and he was a dude that did the thing, right? He always went up and did the sacrifices every year.
He did.
And all that stuff at the house of the Lord. And
That he did.
Hannah was very grieved because not only was she a wife that was having issues of having a child, but she also had a sister wife.
She did.
That had many fruits of the looms.
It is just a similar situation, isn't it, ladies? There's so many women in the Bible. They
Yep.
just be having another wife, and they be having all the kids.
Yeah.
But
So
the other women who are barren, they get a blessing.
That, she was very, very sorrowful, and Elkanah tried to do the best that he could, right, to console her, to love her, to do all the things, give her extra portions and whatnot.
Made sure she felt at least like, girl, I see you.
To try to make sure that she felt loved.
Yeah.
That did not console her, right?
It did not.
And she went and fell at the steps of the house of the Lord, and she must have been doing something kind of odd. I mean, she was praying, right?
Right.
It says she was praying, and she was moving her mouth, but there was no sound coming out.
It's like when some people read books.
Right. I used to do that. Help me track because my eyes be going all over the place. And Eli, the priest at the time, thought that she was doing something pretty odd because he yelled at her and said, "Hey, get away from them drugs or drink or whatever it was."
Like, lady.
Yeah, he called her out and she's like, "Hey, I'm not drunk. I'm sorrowful because I don't have a kid." Right? And basically he saw something or whatnot, and he said, "Yeah, go home. You should have a kid." And she went home, had a kid. But in that, Hannah, Samuel's mother, actually made a vow and said that if she were to get said child, that she would dedicate him to the Lord, and that his hair would not be cut.
Right.
Right? Who is that similar to?
The other Sam.
Son? Yeah.
Yeah, the other Sam.
So
Son.
seems very like a similar vow, like the Nazarite vow, right?
Right.
Where
I almost said Ninevite. I was like, it's like the Ninevite.
close.
That's not it. Nazarite vow.
Close. But where you don't cut the hair but it doesn't go into the detail of the fact that no grapes of any kind and all the stuff that the Nazarite vow does. But it definitely seems similar. And scholars, more scholarly than me, would also put Samuel in as a Nazarite as well. What is the difference between Samson's dedication and Samuel's dedication?
Well, with Samson, it was told to her that this was supposed to be her son's life. And with Samuel, his mother vowed for him.
Right. So Samson was definitely from the beginning God instituted, God initiated, whereas Samuel's is mother approved, essentially.
I mean, mother
Right.
begged.
Right. But, the cereal. Anyway,
Oh.
but it was brought on. It was not instituted by the mom, right?
Yeah.
So she went home and she knew her husband, as the Bible says, and she bore a son,
She did.
little bouncing Samuel,
Yeah.
right? And once Samuel was born, it was time to go up to the old temple again for the old sacrifice. And she said, "Hey, I'm not going to go this year." And Elkanah was like, "Well, do what you seems right." Right? So with that, she stayed back and waited until Samuel was weaned, right? Before she went back up to the house of the Lord.
Yeah.
And
so it wasn't just that 1 year.
No, it wasn't just that 1 year, but that was like the start of it.
We were talking about it in our group, and we were like, what would be the time of like weaning? Is it like when the child is like weaned off breast milk, or is it when the child is is like, in Jewish custom, it was like, what, 2 or 3 years when it was deemed that, oh, the baby can live. And now it's all of that. Like, they had a big party, like, Abraham, had for Isaac. And, is it that time, like 2 or 3, or is it when they're like fully potty trained? So like 3 to 4-ish. Yeah. When the child could essentially
Right.
like be given instruction, and there's a lot less. I mean, if you think there's a bunch of priests, it's a lot of old fellows that don't want to be doing
But we haven't
diapers,
gotten
I'm
there
sure.
yet. So hold on.
No, it's about weaning.
Yes.
So what would be the age of weaning?
Right. Well, and the Bible doesn't explicitly say either. Right. So, anyway, he got weaned. It was time, and it came time for the sacrifices again. So therefore, Samuel and his mama and fam went up to do the things again. Mm-hmm. And when they went up to do the things again, she kept her word. Didn't she?
She did. She took him up.
She took him
Said,
up.
it's time now.
She made sure that she kept her word and that she left the kid there.
Yeah.
Talk about hard.
Yeah. It's very, that part seems very like Moses and his mother.
Right.
Weaning a child to then.
She didn't set him on a river and say bye-bye.
Right. But she did take care of him and then give him up.
Right, but I don't know.
Like weaning age.
I don't think Moses wasn't weaned when he was given up. Because his sister went to Pharaoh's daughter and said, I know one that can, a wet nurse.
Yeah.
I
mean, wasn't it a lot longer? From what I have heard, they nursed for a lot longer than they did. Like, they continued to nurse.
It's another thing that they don't tell you
say.
age.
Yeah.
Right?
Say.
They only say until she could hide him no longer.
Right.
Right? So if he's a colicky baby, that could have been
really
very short, right?
Yeah.
Or it could have been,
little boy running
a year,
around at like
or,
3.
Right. So we don't know for sure, but we do know that his mom was gotten so that he could continue to nurse and grow.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying this is similar.
Right.
They got to take care of their child and then give them up.
I was just saying that he wasn't weaned yet on Moses. That's all.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, so she had to leave the old Samuel at the
little young Samuel.
Yeah. At the house of the Lord. Mm-hmm.
So that was week 1. Week 1 was Hannah, essentially.
Yep.
Week 2 was Eli and his sons.
Right.
Mostly his sons, but
yep.
Week 2 talked about Eli's sons, and they were not good people.
Yep. No, they were not good people.
They were not good people.
Matter of fact, it says that they were corrupt, that they were evil, that they would go to the people that were trying to do the offerings and not allow them to complete them correctly.
Right.
Whereas just taking the boiled meat, which is what their portion was, they would actually say, give us raw meat. They would cause much strife with God's people.
Yeah, there's something about with the fat. About that, like, it was a bunch of different things that was causing the people to not want to
do the offering,
at all, the sacrifices, and like, we don't even want to do it anymore. So they were being a blockade for God's people to get right with God. And God was like, I'm going to deal with them.
Right.
I'm going to deal with them soon.
So in all of this time, we just see that Samuel ministered to the Lord and that he grew in stature, both in the sight of the Lord and among men.
Yeah,
Right.
and my dad had said that's the same thing that they said about Jesus when he was in the temple at 12.
Mm-hmm.
Was the same thing was said about him.
Mm-hmm. And because Eli and his kids were, well, basically his kids were doing the stuff that was bad, and
Yeah.
Eli did nothing about it. God said, "Enough of you,
No.
and away with your family."
Yeah.
Right. And it's not at this time that he actually executes judgment.
Correct.
He just lets Eli know, "Hey, it's coming."
Yeah, it's
Right.
like in the age of their youth. No, in the
Flower.
flower of their youth.
Yep.
That's when it's gonna happen. It's like, oh.
Right.
So we were trying to
And
discuss like when the flower was.
right. And it's basically when you come in the prime of your life, and the fact that it's not just his sons that are going to have the issue, it's all descendants, right? He's going to wipe this family off the map, essentially.
Yeah.
Because of
not
just
great.
the evil that they were doing and causing such dissension amongst the rest of the Israelites,
Right.
right?
So it's like Korah, except it wasn't immediate with an opening of the ground and swallowing up. It was a delayed
Right.
punishment. Sorry if you heard me punch the microphone.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it was definitely like a delayed thing because he's just saying, "Hey, this thing is coming," right? And we know that Samuel is growing, but we don't know age, right?
Right.
But we do find out in the very next thing that Samuel continues to minister, continues to grow,
Right.
right?
Continues to do the learning of how to do
Of how to do the things. But we also find out that revelation is not widespread. And we
Right.
spent a whole week on that, right?
Yeah.
Because right now, would you say that revelation is widespread or not?
I know. Oh, sorry. My intake of breath. I think my body thought I was yawning. I wasn't till I was. No, because we have the Bible. We have the Bible. We have the full revelation of God.
Right. We also have the Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
right? Which was not a common thing. It was only for a few and only for a time
Right.
in those days. So revelation is definitely widespread. And we find out that that's not the case in the time of Eli and Samuel. And so he's doing the things, he's learning,
Right.
right? And finally we get to a point where Eli is very old and he's going blind
Yeah.
and he's not doing well,
He's either
And-
got cataracts
or he's just old.
or we learned from one of our friends that if you have like diabetes issues, you can have blood vessels that like bleed in the back of your eye, and it kind of feels like a veil coming down, like a dark veil you can kind of see through. But so when it was like, and his eyes went dark, his eyes were going dark, it could be that he had cataracts, but it also could be that he had blood in the back of his eye that was forming a film.
Mm-hmm.
We have
Yeah.
some really smart friends.
Yeah, we do. So, I mean, and it could be old age. Either way, he's going blind.
Yeah.
Right? He's old.
Yeah.
And
He's an old
his
man.
time on this mortal earth was almost, yeah, I know, I speak well, was almost done.
Made me think of Turtle.
Turtle.
Myrtle Life. Myrtle World.
And so they're sleeping. Old Sammy Sam and Eli are sleeping because, well, they stay at the temple. And
Yeah.
the Lord calls out to Samuel. He says, "Samuel." And Samuel gets up and he's like, "Here I am," and runs to Eli.
Yeah.
He's like, "You called me."
He's like, "Hey, you called me." And he's like, "No, you were dreaming. Go to sleep."
Right. And so he goes back and lays back down. And again, "Samuel."
And he runs.
And he runs.
And
"Here
he's
am
like,
I."
"Hi." He doesn't say, "Here am I." He
He
says,
does.
no, that's when he talks to the Lord.
Um,
Does he say, "Here am I" all the time?
Here I am.
Never mind. He says, "Here I am."
Here I
And
am.
he's like, "Hey, you called me?" And he's like, "No, I did not. Go to sleep."
Mm-hmm.
And then it happens a third time,
Right.
and he runs to Eli, and he's like, "I know you called me."
Well, that's not what he said. For you did call me.
Yeah. Well, yes. He's like, "For you did call me."
Well, he said, so we have to like go through the things here.
Okay, let's go through the things.
He says, you called me.
Yeah.
He says, no, I didn't. He says, for you called me. He said, no, I didn't. He's like, for you did call me.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
you
It's
could,
kinda like
could
Peter's.
tell like maybe he was getting a little tootish.
Yeah.
Right.
He's being maybe a teenager, maybe a
Right.
preteen. You know, we don't know.
Or just a person that's gotten woken up 3 times out of sleep.
It's like, are you kidding me? What?
Yeah. So, so I mean, I get that maybe once. Get woke up once, and maybe I have a little bit of toot.
I'm like,
right?
honey. And you're like, no, you don't have a tooth the first time. I'm like, honey. And you're like, what? But then I'm like, honey. And you're like, what? He would get
But anywho's olds.
hoots.
So the third time, he's a little frustrated.
Yeah. He's like,
but,
you did call me. I know
But
it.
then Eli goes, huh, uh-oh, right? He perceives that, oh, it's God calling you. Next time, don't get up. Say, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Right?
Talk to him. Let
just-
him know that you're there and your servant awaits.
Right.
And so God does call.
God calls a fourth time.
It does.
Right? So even though we had so many missed calls, right, that he finally answers the right guy, right? And once he answers, what does God tell Samuel?
Here's the thing. Samuel's time is done.
Nope.
Or Eli's time is done.
Mm-hmm.
And his kids are running a rampant, and it's his fault. And so
Kind of.
he says that. He says it's his fault.
No.
I'll show you where it is.
He doesn't say that their sin is his fault. He
No.
says,
I said they're running rampant and it's his fault.
no. He says he did not restrain them.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
so he didn't correct
He
them.
didn't discipline. I mean,
Because he yelled at them earlier and
Yeah.
said, you're doing evil, but then didn't follow it up with actually restraining them and making sure that they did not affect God's people.
yes.
So his fault was the fact that he didn't do anything
He did not
about
discipline his children when they were
Right.
going crazy.
it. Right.
Yes.
So, and it says because and it just says that his sons are evil, and because he did not restrain them,
Yeah.
not because of their evilness, but because he didn't restrain them,
Right.
this judgment is coming on Eli's house,
Yeah.
right? And kind of goes through the thing, right?
He does. He's like, the time is now.
Or soon, right? Because it doesn't.
Coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. But
And-
he's known that it's coming.
And so with this, right, you have this whole dialogue between Samuel and Eli where he's woken this dude up 3 times. He knows that in the morning, Eli's going to want to know, what the heck did God say to you,
Yeah.
right? And you have Samuel on the other side, who is younger, right? And first time being talked to by God, right? It says that in there because it says that he had not known the Lord yet.
Right.
And so this is the first time of this first interaction, and it's like, I'm going to go smite this guy over here.
I just got to tell him but really bad news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Well,
would-
not that he has to tell him really bad news, but that he knows he's going to ask. Because God doesn't say, hey, go tell this guy this.
No, but he knows that he's going to have to tell his mentor some not great news.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's all
jacked up.
worried.
Yeah.
It says he lays back down, but it doesn't ever say
it
that
says-
he went back to sleep.
It doesn't say.
And I would think it would be really hard to go back to sleep. One, because you just talked to God for the first time.
I mean, wouldn't you be amped?
And two, the fact of the news that you got.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd be like, I'm so excited. Oh, that's going to be really rough.
That is going to be rough. So,
I don't think I would have
nevertheless,
slept.
in the morning after Samuel opens up the temple and gets everything going, Eli calls him and says, hey, come over here and tell me what the Lord told you.
Yeah.
And not only did he say, tell me what the Lord told you, he said, tell me everything that he said. And then if you don't, it be done to you worse than what was said to you about somebody else.
Yeah, he's like, don't sugarcoat it. Give me exactly what was said. Don't leave anything out.
But it's almost like he knew what was coming. Right?
Well, I mean,
'Cause
he
was like,
kind of knew what
have
was
it
happening.
worse than what it be to them.
I mean, I think he could have assumed. Like,
He could have.
I mean, can you imagine Eli? I mean, if I was, let's just say I was in trouble and somebody kept coming like, hey, your phone keeps ringing. Hey, your phone keeps ringing. I'm like, my phone isn't ringing. And then they're like, and you're like, oh, it's probably mom. You should answer it. And then it calls. I would just be awake the whole night like, oh, I know I'm in trouble. I know I'm in trouble. I know I'm in trouble. You
Well,
know?
he already knows he's in trouble. He's already been told he's in
But
trouble.
then it's like, oh, what is it? What are they gonna say in the morning? Like it's, he's probably laying there not sleeping well either because he knows something bad's coming.
Right.
So neither of them slept. I'm assuming. That's
We're
just my
assuming.
take on
That's
it.
the book of second speculation.
Yes.
But, we know how we would
They're both
react, right?
probably
We're all
tired.
humans, right? So, what does it say? Samuel tells him everything, leaves nothing else, nothing else, leaves nothing out.
Correct.
Tells him all that he needs to tell him.
Yep.
And Eli's like, well, if it sounds good to him, let it be done.
Yeah.
It's like this apathetic, like
It does
no heart
seem-
change.
It does
No.
seem kind of apathetic.
No, like, oh crap, I really
Like, if it
messed
seems
up.
good to him, let him do it.
Right. Just like total
He
defeatist.
seems resigned.
Right. Defeatist attitude, like, okay, well, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing I could do about it now. Well, you still got breath in your lungs, bro.
Yeah.
Right?
I wonder if he plenty of years before he had heard like, oh, this is not great. My kids aren't doing great.
Right.
And then I'm sure my hope is that he tried to curb his kids, but it says he didn't restrain them at all. So,
I mean, we only get the one like tongue lashing earlier that he gave them. That's all what we have recorded, and then we have God saying that he didn't restrain them.
right. I mean, like he didn't
So,
stop them from
I mean,
doing
it could be like
everything.
a parent, just like the one that yells at the kids, but the kids just do what they want anyway,
Maybe.
right? So,
Or maybe he's so old and feeble that he's like,
right. So, I mean,
I
again,
don't know. He
it's
just seems resigned.
speculation, right?
Whether snarkily or like sad. I mean, he might just, instead of being like, well, let him do what he wants to do, he might be like, if he
Right.
feels it's good, then let
Well,
him do it.
I mean,
Like,
and you can contrast this with another character in the Bible being Job,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where his kids would get together and party and have, a good time or whatnot. And he was out doing sacrifices and making offerings just in case they might have sinned,
right.
right? And trying to like make sure that the family was covered, trying to do the right thing.
Right.
Right. And you have Eli that we see do a tongue lashing once, and then said that he didn't restrain them. So it's almost like it was an absent parenting, or it was just like, well, you better not do that. And then nothing.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah. It's not a good sitch,
No.
Either way.
definitely not a good situation. Any hoozles. So it was kind of sad to see that at the end of his life, he's just so given up, right?
He does seem like he gave
But
up.
also, we have to remember that at this time, like we said earlier, that the revelation of the Lord was not widespread. what does this signify to Eli? Not only did he get the judgment from God, he got the judgment reiterated to him from Samuel. What else does this mean?
Well, he's not the one that got the message. That means that God has moved on from him as
Right.
being the mouthpiece from God, of God, and then it is now moved on to Samuel.
Right. Right. Exactly. So
He has been replaced.
So not only do we get the apatheticness of like, well, this is judgment, it's like really certain now because God is like moved on, right? I was like, I'm done with you. I tried, and
Right.
you didn't do the thing, so therefore I'm moving on,
Yeah.
right? And we find out that Samuel grows, and that everybody from Dan to Beersheba knows that
The whole region.
God is with Samuel, and that he's growing, and that he speaks the word of the Lord,
Yeah.
right?
He is then established as the prophet for everyone.
So, and his word is all overs,
Yeah.
because he's that mouthpiece now. He's doing the thing, and he's doing it correctly. And you know, that was so cool to see that he didn't have the Holy Spirit, but he was doing the thing to honor his mom and honor God,
Right.
right? Without the extra help of the Holy Spirit, or the extra help of having God's presence with him, right? But he was still doing the thing, which is really cool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is.
And you know, we found some good applications in there, as you know, don't shy away from telling what the Lord has said, right? Always tell the truth in love, right? Because
Obviously.
we're to do it in a loving manner, not in a condemning manner, right? We are only there by the grace of God, just like anybody else would be. So we need to make sure that in love we're pleading with people, being that mouthpiece, being that ambassador in this world,
Yeah.
so that other people can know just what God has done in the past, and in the present, and in the future, going to do in the future. And that we need to watch who we associate ourselves with. And if we find ourselves, you know, in a group of people that's not so great, make sure that we're connected to God, because it could affect us,
Yeah.
right? And luckily, Samuel didn't let it affect him, even in his formative growing years.
Yeah, that's huge. He's young. He's being taught. We don't hear who he's like who all of his teachers are, right?
Right.
But if you assume that his sons are Eli's sons are the people who are doing everything, they're the men who are in charge of sacrifices
Like
and
the priest
offerings, and
helpers.
they're right. So they would be like his professors, and Eli would essentially be like his dean. That would mean that as his teachers are doing incorrect things, he is learning what not to do at the same time. But he so easily could have just followed the way Eli's sons were behaving. But, you know, that just,
Right.
it just shows his strength of character
And
and God's protection
strength
over
of
him.
character also, you know, because we don't know what specific age, maybe his mom had a real influence younger, right? And like forming that so that he didn't be so susceptible,
Yeah.
right? You know, we also look at like making sure that we know the word that God has revealed to us, so that when we do get in those situations, we don't get swayed,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
it's so easy for us to get swayed by this or that, especially if it's put in a shredded truth, right? And they're like, well, that kind of sounds right. Well,
Right. But if you don't know,
right. If
kind
you,
of sound right
yeah.
is
And then
okay.
you fall into something that's pretty dang bad,
Yeah.
right?
Or close.
Close,
But
misses the mark.
it's freedom wrapped in chains instead of freedom,
Right.
just open freedom.
Right.
You know, yeah, there's a lot that when it's wrapped in truth, but then the trappings are a trap, you know, that's what makes it difficult, because it's hard to study in a place of being trapped, in a place of guilt,
In a place of guilt, in a place
condemnation,
of like,
rather
if
than-
I mess up, then God's going to turn away from me. God's going to walk away from me.
right.
Right. It's really hard to study in that, because you're like, it's almost like you get in the other pitfall of, well, ignorance is bliss.
Right.
No, it's not.
No.
Actually, the bliss is actually knowing the truth,
The full truth,
and
the
finding
freedom.
out the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that you can fully live in freedom and not in the trappings of, well, ignorance is bliss, or holy crap, I just did this. I've got to, do my Hail Marys or whatnot to make sure that I'm covered, because God's grace isn't enough. So therefore I need to do more to make sure that I don't lose my salvation.
Right.
It's much better to actually read the full thing.
Right.
And
know where you are.
While you were a sinner, because you weren't even born yet.
Right.
He paid for all of it.
Right.
Right. And once you acknowledge that he paid for all of it, it's all covered, right? That doesn't mean that you won't feel bad when you do something wrong. You will.
You will. You should.
And you should, right? But that's the mechanism so that you correct it so you don't do it again.
Yeah.
Or if it happens again, you do it less.
Yeah.
Right?
It's oh, my bad. That really sucks. I don't want this feeling again. I don't want these consequences again.
Right.
I'm going to not do that. But it has no bearing on your eternal security.
Right. It has no bearing on the work that he did.
Yeah, because if you can do something for God to turn away, then what he did on the cross was not enough to stay.
Right. Exactly. Right. And our works are not, his work is not dependent on ours. It's only dependent on our belief, right?
Right.
Nothing that we do, right? Because Paul talks about, if it was anything that we did, then we could boast about it.
Right.
Right. And you see those people that have that wrong teaching boast about what they do.
Right.
Right. Whereas it's about what he did, so that we can't boast. It's nothing that we can do because we're wretched. We can't do anything to please God outside of being with him and in his family. Right.
If there's nothing we can do to get out of it, or nothing we can do to get into it, there's no way we can do to get out of it.
Right. Because it also says from Paul that there's no power of hell and no scheme of man, including yourself, that can ever pluck you from his hand.
Right.
Once you're there, you're there. Right. It's an unconditional loving parent. Right. And if you've been fortunate enough to feel that from an earthly parent, fantastic. Right. But it's makes you feel weird to like acknowledge that and on this side of glory, because almost all of our relationships are conditional on some level. Right?
Yeah, probably.
Because inevitably, if you do a thing, if it's bad enough, people will walk away and you will no longer have that relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas with God, that's not the thing, right? Yeah. And it's not that we're saying, hey, go out and live like a hellion.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, people ask that. Where was that? One of the churches. They're like, so for grace to abound, should we go sin more so that his work on the cross means more? And Paul's like, oh, please no.
That was Romans
By
6.
no means. Don't do that. No, his grace is good the way it is.
Right.
He does not need your assistance in doing more bad things just so that his grace means more.
Because you're gonna do them anyway. Like you don't need to
You
exceed.
try not to.
You don't need to over and above because you're already gonna do something stupid, right?
One break in the rules is enough to be fully condemned. You
Right.
just know you've done that one.
Right.
You need the Lord, and
If you're wondering where that is, it's Romans 6. So
thank you.
yeah, I mean, if you ever want to find out like the basics of like faith and what God has done and what it means to be covered, read Romans.
Yeah, Romans is good.
It is the base of theology. It's like theology 101 for sure. To just know that, hey, you were an idiot. It's okay, but this is the way forward.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, those are the things that I've been seeing so far in studying Samuel.
Yeah.
And it's been like 4 weeks. It's been 4 weeks of studying Samuel, like his family, some of the people around him.
4, not 3.
It's
I think it was
4,
Hannah.
right? Because
the
I know this
boys.
because on my PowerPoint slides, I labeled like Samuel 1.
Samuel 2, Samuel. Oh, and you've already done.
And now last week was Samuel 4.1
Oh.
on my slides. So yeah, we've done 4 weeks to get through 3 chapters.
Sorry, guys.
Samuel.
We apparently have not been on here in a while.
Yeah, we haven't been on top of it. That's for sure. We did have a camping trip, which was fantastic with all of the family.
Yeah.
And
We celebrated
stuff.
my birthday.
We are still meeting here, so I mean, you guys could come.
We are. Even when we were camping, we came home.
We came home and
It was my birthday.
and still had yeah. And what did we have that day? Was that dogs?
That was hot dog day.
Hot dog day.
It was so hot outside. I was like, let's just do hot dogs. He was like, that's what you want for your birthday? And I was like, I want the least work possible.
I want the least amount of heat in the house.
Outside on the grill. We cook outside on the grill almost every night just because it keeps the heat out. Mm-hmm. We've even done like meatloaf, cookies.
Yep.
Tons of stuff on the grill.
Yeah, so if you want to meet up with us in person, go ahead and hit us up in the comments. Go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, share the show with a friend. Maybe you know a friend that needs to hear about the old Sammy Sam.
Or anything else.
Or anything else that we talked about, right? And yeah. So yeah, we've been having a lot of food. Usually we talk about the food that we have, you know. But it's been 4
Sammy
weeks.
bar.
It's
been a minute.
it's been a minute. We've had
We
a
had
lot of
pulled
food.
pork sandwiches last week
Yep.
for my brother's birthday party.
Yep.
He was my 4th birthday gift.
Yay.
So yeah, we had
had
Sammy's.
smoked pulled pork made from home, not
was
the store bought stuff, which was fantastic. He did a great
Delicious.
job.
Yeah, he's good at it.
Yeah. So if you're intrigued and hungry, come Sunday afternoon,
for food.
go ahead and hit us up in the comments, and we'd love to share where we're at, and you can come and hang out with us and get us in person.
Yeah.
But with that, we are finished for the week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.